I always thought I was doing everything right: work hard, save money, be responsible. That's what adults do, right? At least, that's what I've been telling myself for the past decade while working 60-hour weeks at my accounting firm. My name is Rachel Carter, 30 years old, single, and as of 2 weeks ago, a proud homeowner. When my grandmother passed away, she left me a modest inheritance, not enough to change my life, but enough to put a significant dent in the cost of a home. I've been saving religiously since my first job at 22, living in a tiny studio apartment, packing lunches, and saying no to vacations my friends took without a second thought. While everyone else was posting Instagram photos from Bali or buying designer clothes, I was working overtime and putting every extra dollar into my savings account. So when I finally had enough, $300,000 to be exact, I bought my dream apartment outright. No mortgage, no debt. Just mine. It's a 2-bedroom place about 10 minutes from my office in a neighborhood that's not too fancy but definitely on the rise. The previous owners had terrible taste in wallpaper and the kitchen needs updating, but I don't mind. I decided to do the renovations myself to save money. YouTube tutorials have become my evening entertainment. I was in the middle of scraping off that hideous floral wallpaper when my phone rang. It was my mom. "Rachel, dear, I need you to come over next Saturday for a family meeting," she said, her voice having that fake casual tone she uses when she's up to something. "Family meeting? What's going on?" I asked, pausing my renovation work. "Oh, it's a surprise. Just make sure you're here by 4, and bring one of those chocolate cakes from that bakery near your new place." "Mom, seriously, what's this about?" I pressed, immediately suspicious. "Just a little family gathering. Your sister Emily will be there with Jason, and I've invited your aunts and uncles and cousins too." That raised my eyebrows. The whole extended family, for a little gathering? "Mom, it's a secret, Rachel. A surprise. Just be here, okay?" And then she hung up. I shrugged and went back to my wallpaper. Whatever drama my mom was cooking up would have to wait. I had a home to fix. My sister Emily is 3 years younger than me, 27, and has been dating Jason for about 4 years. They live in a rented apartment downtown. Unlike me, Emily has always had an easier time of things. She was the cheerleader in high school while I was on the debate team. She dropped out of college to find herself, while I worked through my accounting degree, and somehow, our parents never seemed to mind. Growing up, it was always Emily this and Emily that. When we were kids and both had dance recitals on the same weekend, guess which one my parents attended? When we both graduated, my parents threw Emily a massive party for finishing high school, while my college graduation got a dinner at Olive Garden. I still remember my 16th birthday when I got a used bike, while Emily got a car for her 16th the following year. When I asked my parents why, they said Emily needs more help getting around to her social activities, as if my debate tournaments and library volunteering didn't count. But I've never been the type to make a scene. I just worked harder, saved more, and proved I could take care of myself. The week flew by as I continued working on my apartment. I managed to get all the wallpaper down and started priming the walls for painting. The sense of accomplishment I felt looking at my progress was worth every blister on my hands. When Saturday arrived, I woke up early to finish painting the living room before heading to my parents' house. I stopped by the bakery as requested and picked up a chocolate cake with buttercream frosting, my mom's favorite. As I drove to my childhood home, I wondered what this family meeting could possibly be about. My parents' house is a 2-story colonial-style home that my grandmother left to Emily and me when she passed. We let our parents continue living there, of course. It never even occurred to me to do otherwise. The house was filled with childhood memories, both good and bad. As I pulled into the driveway, I noticed several cars already parked. I recognized Uncle Mark's truck and Aunt Lisa's minivan. Cousin Ryan's motorcycle was leaning against the garage. Whatever this was about, it was definitely a full family affair. I took a deep breath, grabbed the cake box, and headed inside. "Rachel's here," my mom called out as I walked through the door. She gave me a quick hug and took the cake from my hands. Perfect timing. "We're just about to sit down." I looked around the living room. Emily and Jason were sitting on the couch, hands intertwined, whispering to each other. My dad was talking with Uncle Mark in the corner. Aunt Lisa and my cousins were already heading toward the dining room. "What's going on?" As I approached, I asked Emily what was going on. She just smiled mysteriously. "You'll see." That didn't help my growing sense of unease. I followed everyone into the dining room, where Mom had set the table with her good china, the set she only brings out for Thanksgiving and Christmas. Whatever this announcement was, it was clearly important. I took my seat next to Cousin Ryan, who seemed just as confused as I was. "Do you know what this is about?" I whispered. He shook his head. "No clue. Mom just called us all here for some big news." The food was passed around: pot roast, mashed potatoes, green beans, and the cake I brought was placed at the center of the table for dessert. Everyone made small talk, carefully avoiding the elephant in the room. Finally, after everyone had filled their plates, Mom stood up, tapping her glass with a spoon. "I want to thank you all for coming today," she said, beaming. "We have some wonderful news to share." She stood at the head of the table, her smile stretching unnaturally wide as she looked at Emily. "Our dear Emily is pregnant," she announced. The room erupted in cheers and congratulations. Emily blushed while Jason put his arm around her shoulders. "And they're getting engaged," Mom continued. "Wedding plans will follow soon." I clapped along with everyone else, genuinely happy for my sister despite our complicated relationship. "Congratulations, Emily," I said, smiling at her across the table. But Mom wasn't finished. She exchanged a look with Dad and Emily, then turned to me with an expression that made my stomach drop. "That's not all," she said, her voice cutting through the chatter. The room quieted. "As you all know, Rachel recently bought herself an apartment," Mom said, gesturing toward me. The relatives nodded, some murmuring congratulations they hadn't bothered to offer when I first shared the news 2 weeks ago. "Rachel is 30 years old and single," Mom continued. "No husband. No children. Not even a boyfriend." I felt my face grow hot. What did my relationship status have to do with anything? "Emily, on the other hand," she went on, "is about to start a family. She and Jason need a place of their own, not some rental." My heart began pounding as I realized where this was going. I glanced at Emily and Jason. They were staring intently at their plates. Mom turned to me, her smile now sharp as a knife. "Rachel, this is your chance to show how much you love your sister. How generous and kind you are. I think you should give your new apartment to Emily and Jason." Silence fell over the dining room. I stared at Mom in disbelief, waiting for the punchline to this horrible joke. But it never came. "You can go back to renting," she added casually, as if she wasn't asking me to give away my $300,000 apartment. "You don't need all that space just for yourself." I looked around the table. Dad nodded in agreement. Emily finally met my eyes, her expression a mix of embarrassment and expectation. "That's a wonderful idea," Aunt Lisa chimed in. "Family should always come first." Several others nodded in agreement. This wasn't a spontaneous suggestion. This was a planned ambush. "You're not serious," I finally managed to say. "Of course I am," Mom replied, her voice hardening. "Your sister needs it more than you do." I stood up slowly, my chair scraping against the floor. "Let me get this straight. You want me to give Emily my apartment? The apartment I worked 60-hour weeks for years to afford?" The apartment I just bought with money I inherited from grandma and saved for 8 years? You want me to just hand it over, because Emily got pregnant? Rachel, Dad cut in, his tone warning me to back down. Don't be selfish. Selfish? I laughed, the sound hollow even to my own ears. I worked for that apartment. Every single penny. No one helped me. But Emily needs, Mom started. No, I interrupted. Absolutely not. I will not give my apartment to Emily. It's mine. I earned it. Emily burst into tears, her hand dramatically pressed against her still flat stomach. Jason glared at me as if I had just kicked a puppy. How can you be so heartless? Mom demanded, her face flushing with anger. Your own sister. How can you ask me to give away everything I've worked for? I countered. Why doesn't Emily work and save like I did? The relatives began whispering among themselves. I heard phrases like, so materialistic, and, always was the difficult one. You've always been like this, Mom spat. Always thinking only of yourself. I'm not giving her my apartment, I repeated firmly. End of discussion. What happened next still plays in my mind in slow motion. Mom grabbed the chocolate cake I brought, the one sitting untouched in the center of the table, and hurled it at me with surprising force. It hit me square in the face. Cream and chocolate splattered across my cheeks and dripped down my neck onto my blouse. The room fell silent. I slowly wiped the frosting from my eyes, letting globs of cake fall to the floor. Dad and Emily didn't look shocked or horrified. Instead, they looked pleased, as if I'd finally gotten what I deserved. Without a word, I grabbed my purse and keys and walked out, cake still smeared across my clothes and hair. Behind me, I could hear the shouting begin. Selfish bastard. That was Mom's voice. We should disown you. Dad called after me. How could you do this to me? Rachel Carter wailed as I got into my car, my hands shaking so badly I could barely turn the key. Somehow, I managed to drive home, chocolate frosting drying on my skin. I collapsed onto my couch, the old second-hand one I brought from my rental, and tried to process what had just happened. My phone started buzzing almost immediately. Text messages and calls from my parents and Emily Carter flooded in. You're being ridiculous. Just give her the apartment. I can't believe how selfish you're being right now, after everything we've done for you. Your pregnant sister needs a home. I turned off my phone and tossed it aside. What had they ever done for me? All my life, I'd been second best to Emily. When we were kids and both needed new clothes for school, Emily got the brand names, while I got whatever was on clearance. When we both applied to summer camps, my parents found the money for Emily's art camp, but told me the debate camp I wanted was too expensive. On Emily's 16th birthday, they threw her a massive party with a professional DJ. On mine, Mom made a cake and invited 2 relatives. And now they expected me to give her my apartment, the one thing I'd achieved completely on my own. I thought about the house we were sitting in just an hour ago, my grandmother's house, the one she left to Emily and me equally in her will. We'd let our parents live there out of kindness, never asking for anything in return. I was half owner of that house, just as Emily was, and suddenly, I knew exactly what I needed to do. The next morning, I woke up with a plan. I searched through my filing cabinet until I found the folder labeled Grandma's Will. Inside was the document that confirmed what I already knew: Emily and I each owned 50% of our parents' house. They were living there by our goodwill, not by legal right. I was about to call a lawyer when my phone pinged. It was a notification from Facebook. My mother had tagged me in a post. With a growing sense of dread, I opened the app and nearly dropped my phone when I saw what she'd written. It breaks my heart to share this, but sometimes family disappoints you in the worst ways. Yesterday, my daughter Rachel Carter refused to help her pregnant sister Emily Carter when she needed it most. Despite having the means to help, Rachel chose selfishness over family. As a mother, I've never been more heartbroken. Please pray for Rachel to find compassion in her heart. The post had dozens of comments, mostly from relatives and family friends. I was there. Rachel was horrifically cruel to poor Emily. Some people just don't understand what family means. Keeping an apartment all to herself when her sister is pregnant? Shameful. Not a single person mentioned how my mother had thrown a cake at my face. Not one person questioned why I should give up my apartment that I'd worked so hard for. I scrolled through the comments, each one like a knife to my chest. My mother was actively liking and responding to the most vicious ones. She was orchestrating a public shaming campaign against me. That was the moment something broke inside me. The last thread of familial loyalty snapped. I picked up my phone and called the first lawyer that came up when I searched for real estate attorney in my area, Blackwell Law Office. A receptionist answered. I need to speak with a lawyer about property rights, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. 2 hours later, I was sitting across from Jeremy Blackwell, a sharp-eyed man in his 50s, who listened carefully as I explained my situation. Let me get this straight, he said when I finished. You and your sister inherited a house from your grandmother. You've allowed your parents to live there rent-free. Now, after they demanded you give your apartment to your sister and publicly humiliated you when you refused, you want to know your options regarding the house? Yes, I confirmed. I don't want to be vindictive, but they've shown me no respect or consideration. I need to know what my rights are. Jeremy reviewed the will and nodded. It's clear-cut. You and your sister each own 50% of the property. You can, at any time, request that the house be sold and the proceeds split between you and your sister. What's the process? I asked. I'll draft a formal notice stating your intention to sell your half of the property. Your sister can either buy you out at fair market value, or the entire house will need to be sold, and the proceeds divided. Your parents legally have no say in the matter. I took a deep breath. Do it. For the next few days, I focused on my apartment renovations. I'd finished painting the living room and moved on to ripping out the old carpet. Physical labor helped keep my mind off the mess with my family. I blocked their numbers temporarily. I needed space to think clearly without their constant harassment. 5 days after my meeting with Jeremy, my doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole to see my parents, Emily, and Jason standing in the hallway. I didn't open the door. Rachel, we know you're in there, my mother shouted. Open this door right now. We need to talk about this ridiculous letter, my father added, his voice booming. I remained silent, pressing record on my phone's voice memo app. You're ungrateful, my mother screamed. After everything we've done for you. You're trying to make your pregnant sister homeless. Emily cried. This is low, even for you, Jason added. I recorded every word, every threat, every insult they hurled at my door for nearly 15 minutes before they finally gave up and left. The next day, I sent the recording to Jeremy, who called me immediately. This is harassment, he said firmly. We can file for a restraining order if necessary. But more importantly, their behavior only strengthens our position. They've clearly demonstrated hostility toward you. A week later, Jeremy called with news. Your parents' lawyer reached out. They want to mediate. The mediation was set for the following Monday at Jeremy's office. I arrived early, dressed in my most professional outfit, a navy blue pantsuit I usually reserved for big client meetings. Jeremy greeted me with a competent smile. Remember, you have every legal right to do this. Don't let them make you feel guilty. My parents, Emily, and Jason arrived with their lawyer. My mother glared at me with naked contempt. Traitor, she hissed as she passed me. The lawyer spoke first, laying out the facts of the case. My parents' lawyer argued that selling the house would cause undue hardship to the family. Jeremy countered by presenting the recorded harassment and social media posts as evidence of their treatment of me. After nearly 2 hours of back and forth, the lawyers conferred privately before returning with a proposed settlement. The house would be sold, and the proceeds divided equally between Emily and me, as per our grandmother's will. My mother burst into tears when she heard this. "Please, Rachel," she sobbed, suddenly switching tactics. "We're your family. How can you do this to us? I'm sorry about the cake." "I lost my temper," she continued. I looked at her tear-streaked face, remembering all the times I'd forgiven her treatment of me, all the times I'd accepted being second best to Emily. I thought about the public humiliation she'd orchestrated, the harassment at my door, the demands that I give up everything I'd worked for. "The house will be sold," I said quietly. "That's final." Jeremy nodded and began drafting the settlement agreement. As we waited, I could feel my family's hatred radiating toward me. I didn't care anymore. For the first time in my life, I was standing up for myself. 2 months passed in a blur of legal paperwork and real estate viewings. The house sold faster than expected, the market was hot, and the property was in a desirable neighborhood. After closing costs and fees, Emily and I each received just over $175,000. I never spoke directly to my family during this time. All communication went through our lawyers. I learned from Jeremy that my parents were furious but ultimately powerless to stop the sale. They had been living in a property they didn't own for years, contributing nothing toward its upkeep beyond basic maintenance. What are they going to do now? I asked Jeremy during our final meeting. "Your sister has decided to use her share as a down payment on a new house," he explained. "Your parents will be moving in with her and Jason. They've secured a mortgage for the remainder." I nodded, feeling a strange mix of emotions. Part of me felt guilty, I'd effectively forced my parents from their home. But another part, the part that remembered the cake in my face and the public shaming, felt vindicated. "What about you?" Jeremy asked. "Any plans for your share? Investment portfolio?" "I've been working with a financial advisor to set up a diversified mix of stocks, bonds, and real estate investment trusts," I replied. "Smart move," he said approvingly. "Well, unless there's anything else, I think our business is concluded." I shook his hand. "Thank you for everything." As I walked out of his office, I felt lighter somehow, as if I'd set down a heavy load I'd been carrying for years, the weight of always being the responsible one, the one who gave in, the one who sacrificed. Back at my apartment, I surveyed what I'd accomplished. The renovation was nearly complete. I'd replaced the carpet with hardwood floors, painted every room, updated the kitchen with new appliances, and installed modern light fixtures throughout. It looked nothing like the place I'd bought 3 months ago. It was truly mine now, in every sense. My phone rang. A friend from work. "Hey, Sarah," I answered. "Rachel, how are you doing?" She sounded concerned. We talked briefly about the family drama when I'd shown up to work with red eyes after the cake incident. "I'm okay," I realized as I said it. "Actually, I'm okay. The house sale is final. The money's in my account." "And your family?" Sarah asked. I sighed. "That part's still a mess. I haven't spoken to any of them. I hear things through mutual friends though." "What kind of things?" "Emily's wedding was last month, a small ceremony, just close family." I paused. "I wasn't invited, obviously." "I'm sorry, Rachel." "Don't be. I wouldn't have gone anyway, I meant it. She's due to give birth next week, apparently a boy." "And you're really okay with all of this? Not seeing your nephew?" Sarah asked gently. "We can file for a restraining order if necessary." But more importantly, their behavior only strengthens our position. They've clearly demonstrated hostility toward you. A week later, Jeremy called with some news. Your parents' lawyer reached out. They want to mediate. The mediation was scheduled for the following Monday at Jeremy's office. I arrived early, dressed in my most professional outfit, a navy blue pantsuit I usually reserved for big client meetings. Jeremy greeted me with a competent smile, his tone reassuring. Remember, you have every legal right to do this. Don't let them make you feel guilty. My parents, Emily, and Jason arrived with their lawyer. The moment my mother locked eyes with me, her gaze was cold and seething with contempt. Traitor, she hissed, her voice laced with venom as she passed me. The lawyer spoke first, presenting the facts of the case. My parents' lawyer argued that selling the house would cause undue hardship to the family. Jeremy, however, countered by presenting the recorded harassment and social media posts as evidence of their toxic treatment of me. Nearly 2 hours passed in a tense back and forth. The lawyers conferred privately before returning with a proposed settlement. The house would be sold, and the proceeds divided equally between Emily and me, in accordance with our grandmother's will. My mother's face crumpled. She burst into tears. Please, Rachel, she sobbed, switching tactics in an instant. We're your family. How can you do this to us? I'm sorry about the cake, she continued, her voice thick with emotion. I lost my temper. I looked at her tear-streaked face, and all the memories rushed back. The countless times I'd forgiven her mistreatment, the years of accepting being second best to Emily. I thought of the public humiliation, the harassment at my door, the constant demands to give up everything I had worked so hard for. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. The house will be sold, I said, my voice quiet but firm. That's final. Jeremy nodded in agreement and began drafting the settlement agreement. As we waited, I could feel the hatred radiating from my family, but I didn't care anymore. For the first time in my life, I was standing up for myself, and it felt like a weight was lifting off my shoulders. 2 months passed in a blur of legal paperwork and real estate viewings. The house sold faster than expected. The market was hot, and the property was in a desirable neighborhood. After closing costs and fees, Emily and I each received just over $175,000. I never spoke directly to my family during this time. All communication went through our lawyers. From Jeremy, I learned that my parents were furious but ultimately powerless to stop the sale. They had been living in a property they didn't own for years, contributing nothing toward its upkeep beyond basic maintenance. What are they going to do now? I asked Jeremy during our final meeting. Your sister has decided to use her share as a down payment on a new house, he explained. Your parents will be moving in with her and Jason. They've secured a mortgage for the remainder. I nodded, feeling a strange mix of emotions. Part of me felt guilty, I'd effectively forced my parents from their home. But another part of me, the part that remembered the cake in my face and the public shaming, felt vindicated. What about you? Jeremy asked. Any plans for your share? Investment portfolio? I've been working with a financial advisor to set up a diversified mix of stocks, bonds, and real estate investment trusts, I replied, feeling proud of my newfound financial maturity. Smart move, he said approvingly. Well, unless there's anything else, I think our business is concluded. I shook his hand, feeling grateful. Thank you for everything. As I walked out of his office, a strange sense of lightness washed over me, as if I had set down a heavy load I had been carrying for years, the weight of always being the responsible one, the one who gave in, the one who sacrificed. Back at my apartment, I surveyed what I had accomplished. The renovation was nearly complete. I had replaced the carpet with hardwood floors, painted every room, updated the kitchen with new appliances, and installed modern light fixtures throughout. It no longer resembled the place I had bought 3 months ago. It was mine now, in every sense of the word. My phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. It was a friend from work. Hey, Sarah, I answered. Rachel, how are you doing? Her voice was filled with concern. We talked briefly about the family drama. I had shown up to work with red eyes after the cake incident, and Sarah had been worried. I'm okay, I said, realizing as I spoke that it was true. Actually, I'm okay. The house sale is final. The money's in my account. And your family? Sarah asked gently. I sighed. That part's still a mess. I haven't spoken to any of them. I hear things through mutual friends. What kind of things? Emily's wedding was last month, a small ceremony, just close family. I paused. I wasn't invited, obviously. I'm sorry, Rachel. Don't be, I replied, my tone firm but resigned. I wouldn't have gone anyway. She's due to give birth next week, apparently a boy. And you're really okay with all of this? Not seeing your nephew? Sarah asked, her voice gentle. I paused, reflecting on the question. Part of me felt a pang of loss, but the other part, the stronger part, knew I had to protect myself first. I'll be okay, I said, my voice steady. I'll be okay.